call the May 20th, 2019 Finance Committee meeting to order. Before we get into this, I'd like to get a little philosophical as to what is our purpose? Why are we here? In a minute. So to me, our purpose, why we're here, is to take the information given to us by presenters, by the town, making the best possible financial decision that we can. To me, there is no, I'm for schools, or I'm for police, or I'm for fire, and the hell with everything else. These are town issues, and we have to take the full town into account before we say yay or nay. That's my opinion. I'll go around the table. Tom, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, before we start discussion, I'd like to revisit Article 1 of the special town meeting. Or consider, I'm sorry.
I'm not entertaining that yet,
Why not?
because of how I'm starting.
Point of order. If any member of this committee can request a reconsideration of any article on the table. We sat through 3 days of reconsidering articles that were picking budgets out of the town.
I'm not saying I'm not gonna get to it,
Okay.
but you raised your hand when I said, why are we here?
And that's why I asked you if I could reconsider the article before town meeting, and you said,
And I said-
no, we need more time. So I'm saying again, and I'll say it one more time, and then I'll keep my mouth shut. I would like to reconsider, as it is my right as a member of this committee, Article number 1 of the special town meeting.
And I'll get
Period.
to that.
Fine.
Does anybody else want to answer how I started? Otherwise, we'll get to Tom's.
Motion on the floor.
I second the motion, just for discussion.
Motion and a second to open up, reconsider Article 1 of the special town meeting. All those in favor? All those opposed? Since I can't fully, I'm
Three.
assuming it passed.
Three negatives. I know we're not going school against town, but there's never a good time to do anything, okay? When we passed the debt exclusion for the high school, it was not a good time to do it, but we did it. When we passed the $8 million Windows project, it was not a financially good time to do it, but we did it. And as I said at the town meeting for the debt exclusion, if not now, when? Because there'll never be a good time. We will never be financially overloaded with money that we can just say, okay, we'll do it next year, we'll do it the year after. The point is, we didn't hesitate to do it 3 or 4 years ago, we didn't hesitate to do it last year, okay? That's my point, that's why I wanted to reconsider. I'm not gonna say any more, I've made it.
Mike?
I just want to say, the town is not in good shape, and it hasn't been in good shape for years. And there's one thing that's always the 800-pound gorilla in the room, is that we're using $600,000 in free cash every single year to come up with a budget that nobody is happy with. So unless the town passes a general override, we are never, ever going to be in a good position to do anything. So that means either we proceed and make it work, which we've done all these years, or just do absolutely nothing ever. So I don't want to take that route.
Mr. Chairman, I look at our process for using free cash. It's been available, so our budgeting has allowed that. We've been very conservative in our budgeting for our revenue estimates, so we've had free cash to use. I'm not there about an override just yet. I think there's other steps that we can take. I don't think the conversation in this room right now is about a general override. I think the motion on the floor was to reconsider this discussion, no more conversations about overrides. unless it pertains to this project.
Yeah, I wasn't suggesting it over, I'm just saying that we'll never be in a good position financially until we do. And the free cash, as you know, isn't guaranteed every year. And we got an example from the town of Plainville who was doing exactly what we were doing, and one year, well, this year, the free cash wasn't there, and they're in a hole. I'm not saying we shouldn't do it, I'm not saying we should, this isn't about an override. This is just saying that the town will never be in really good shape until we do. And so we're, just accept the fact that we're not, and, you know, try to make the best of, you know, what we can.
Paul?
I have a real problem with this proposal. And the proposal is nothing to do with whether we need these two buildings. We certainly do. We've needed them for a long time. We will need them until we get them. And it's too bad that we don't. My concern is what's been happening a number of times in very recent times. Think about West Main Street. We approved West Main Street. A year later, we're gonna have another million. Year after that, we're gonna have another million, because we didn't have hard figures, and the more you wait. So that the original thing that we were told, this is what it will cost, turned out to be far less than we have now appropriated, this time hopefully to fit, because they got a bid beforehand. The new wastewater plant, same thing. We ran into things we didn't think about because we hadn't done the land yet, or other things before we approved construction costs. How many times have we gone back to town meeting to add 300, 400, 500,000 to the cost of that? This is what bothers me. And as I sat there and listened the other night at town meeting to everybody there at town meeting talking about where we were and what the EPA was still going to do and other things on that site, we're a long way from getting that site. We have no idea what the timetable is going to be. We have no idea, as a result, what the real costs are going to be. And I am tired of approving something where we have approved so much that we almost have no choice except later on when there's another $1 million to be added, or another, and maybe 2 or 3 times that way. That's what we wind up approving. I was happy to approve the West Main Street finally at this town meeting because they had gone to bid. They came in with a hard number, with bid contract. Now, I know you can't do that on everything, but we're so far away. What I heard about what they were doing on that site, the town is so far away from even getting the site, much less having it approved for certain types of construction and everything else. Every year we'll have to go out to bid again. Every year it'll go up. I fully support the town's deciding to do it. I am tired of this process that we seem to have gotten into where we put something up and then we continually, for about 3 or 4 years, add something every year to it because we haven't got around to being ready actually to do it. And for that reason, and unless somebody can convince me otherwise, but only for that reason, I'm going to vote no tonight. Because I just don't think we're ready. I don't think we're close to knowing really. I see the projected dates that are in this and so forth. I've seen projected dates on project after project that all of us have, and they haven't, more times than not, they haven't been fulfilled. They've gotten done, but they've gotten done at different times and on a different schedule. Nobody's fault. It's just the way it develops. But I just think we should wait and authorize this amount or whatever amount is needed when we have the land, when we know the land is cleared to do this. And we can go ahead and move rapidly so that the figure we approve will be reasonably close to what it winds up eventually costing. And I feel strongly about this, and unless somebody can convince me, I will be voting negative on recommending the figures at this time. I don't think time is right. I don't think we're ready for it. I don't think it's fiscally responsible to vote to spend a lot of money, and then the authorization is there. They won't spend it right now, but the authorization is there. Once you've authorized it, you authorize that borrowing, and it stays there as an authorization. So then they come in and say, well, we need another $500,000 to make it work. And you know, you sort of feel like you're caught, feel like you're trapped. And I fully believe we need this. I will also say, parenthetically, that I think that this is putting the cart before the horse. The first thing that this town needs to be paying attention to while we wait to know when and how much this is actually gonna cost is a general override. And we've needed a general override for a long time. And anybody that wants to push for it, they'll have my full support. I don't like it, but it's what this town has needed. FinCom, as Tom's pointed out a number of times, FinCom for the last 13 or 14 years, every year in its report, has been saying this. Nobody pays any attention. It's gotten, as we know, worse this year. So I think, A, we're putting the cart before the horse. If we're going to talk about overrides, whether they're debt exclusion or general, the general is what we need to focus on at this point. And the reason we need to is that I don't think we're ready to take any real action on these two buildings. I just don't think we're there yet. All right, now I'm going to try to murmur and match Tom and try to keep my mouth shut.
Mike?
Well, I just regret that that's the way you feel. And I don't want this committee to be lumped in with the incompetence of the Water and Sewer Department and their engineers, because the projects you refer to were both water and sewer projects. So that's just unfortunate that they don't know how to bid projects. But this building committee has had two great architects who have put escalators in for years to come, which has inflated the price because of the escalators, and then people say it's too much money. Well, they're doing the right thing. Unlike the Water and Sewer Department, they've put their escalators in, so you'll see if this project isn't built until when, this is what it's gonna cost. And I hear a lot about, you know, we need a plan for the whole town. Well, since that town hall opened, this town has built a middle school, a library, a police station, water and sewer headquarters. They put a renovation and complete remodel of the high school, 2 school roofs, and now an $8 million window project. None of those projects were held up saying there may be somewhere down the road a general override. So I hope this project isn't held hostage to the possibility that a town that has only once voted for a debt exclusion may vote for a general override. It's time. These buildings need to be done. All the other infrastructure has been taken care of. It's time for this infrastructure for the whole town to be taken care of.
Amy?
Mr. Chairman, I have 2 pages of questions and concerns about this project, but in the interest of our time this evening, I'll just share my primary one. And that is the particular site that we are looking at for this project. And I keep getting told, oh, the EPA and the Department of Environmental Protection, they know what they're doing. Then I get told, oh, we hired consultants to oversee them, and we're paying them to oversee them. I don't know what they're overseeing exactly, but they are. I had thought initially when we received this piece of land turned over to us that it would be a completely clean slate. Then I have subsequently found out that the buildings are still going to be on it. So if they're cleaning up the contamination, how do we know that what's under the buildings is going to be clean? And when we start digging and tearing things down and moving things around, if we find additional contamination, who's on the hook for that? Because we certainly don't have the resources to pay to clean up environmentally contaminated land. So I just have some very serious concerns that we may be on the hook for a huge amount of expense down the road that will also substantially delay the building of this project if we continue looking at this site. And then we'll end up having to sit there for years and years like we have with the water treatment plant, being tied up in limbo and not able to move forward.
Bob?
I'm gonna move up here so you can hear me.
Tom, pass it next to you. I can always hear you, if you don't mind collateral damage.
Regarding the debt exclusion, if we appropriate up to $25.7 million, that's all we can spend. Unlike the other projects that Paul indicated, you have to go back for another vote for debt exclusion. You can't just say, we're gonna spend 25.7, oh, by the way, we need another $1 million. That's not how it works. you have to go back and ask for more. And you have to follow the same procedure that you have for a debt exclusion, not for borrowing, for a debt exclusion. There's a big difference. And that's why I disagree with Paul. I love Paul to death, we've known each other for 100 years. The problem I'm having with this whole, I was out of town for a few days, and I wasn't at the last town meeting. And I'm kind of disappointed I didn't make it, but I'm gonna keep throwing out the word community pride. We've got to start having some community pride. In 2011, let me go way back in the days of maybe 3 or 4 of us sitting here. In the early 90s, I remember running for selectman for the first time, based on the fact that the Board of Selectmen would not give me the right to vote on an override for a school. It didn't happen. I ran, one of the reasons I ran was because of that. My point to this whole matter is this: it's now reversed. In my opinion, we're trying to make improvements on town buildings. And now we've got the opposite effect. We had the parents, and the teachers, the administrators, the school committee, all opposed to this process, and let's get the white elephant out. It's all about an override. If this debt exclusion goes through, it's not gonna happen right away. We all know it. Let's talk about it. It's not gonna happen. If you get a debt exclusion that goes through, and you're gonna spend up to $25.7 million, $3 million of that, by the way, we've already raised, just to be clear on that. In 94, 93, 1993, 1994. Finance Committee did give me the right to vote. The Board of Selectmen did not. They would not put it on the warrant for an override. It's different today. Today, you guys don't have the right to take the vote away from me. I have the right to stand up at town meeting and have my say. I've dealt with these buildings for years. I've dealt with all these new buildings that Mike just talked about. I dealt with every single one of them. I found the land the middle school is sitting on. I was fully in support of it. I supported the last override. That's just the way it is. You gotta do what you think is best for the community. In 2011, I know I'm talking history here. In 2011, in the town report, Finance Committee, keep in mind that 2011 is 3 years after 2008, the second worst recession this country has ever had. 70% of the people in this community voted in favor of putting an addition on that high school when we were in stress. We were totally stressed, not even like we are today. It's not even close. Finance Committee says, with this one exception, the prospects for the upcoming fiscal year are getting bleak. As has been the case for the past several years, state aid is projected to decrease again in time, this time by over $100,000 we received from the current fiscal year. Revenues from new growth, which can be added to Proposition 2.5, is projected to be 31% lower than it was in fiscal year 2011. The overall results is an estimated revenue for fiscal year 12 projected at $47,305, which is $756,160 less. This is financial. This is when we were in trouble. The budget contains an appropriation of $311,000 for the public library. The absolute minimum the town can appropriate the library to begin the 2-year process of recertification. This is 2011. We are worse today. We are not worse today than we were in 2011. We're in better shape today than we were then. The selectmen. The fiscal crisis the country has been experienced this year has made this year challenging. The decline in property tax values, the double-digit unemployment, and the high cost of energy tax the town and its citizens. But the point I'm trying to make, we're in better shape now than we were then. And we have the ability to look at it in a reasonable, and not have the focal point, not pit the town against the schools. And that's what this is all about, in my opinion. This is right down the middle. It's going to split this town wide open if we're not careful. And as far as an override goes, you'll never see an override as long as this town can't come together and come up with a solution to help everybody. So the Norton High School bleachers in that same year were put in at a cost of $650,000. The feasibility study for the new high school was put in with an article for $33,990,000. This is 2019. Town meeting approved the fiscal year 12 school budget of $22,511,000, which will require careful management, increases in salaries, and goods and services will continue despite the small budgets. The comparison is, the school budget that year for fiscal year 12 was the same as they appropriated in the fiscal year 2005, 2006. The library, we already talked about that. This is from the town report. Anybody can go and read it. It's all in there. The police department ran with a $72,000 decrease. When I started hearing things about a whole full-time position in the town hall, a school committee member trying to cut that because they need more money for the school side of the budget. What that does, it deteriorates the morale in that town hall like you won't believe, number one. Number two, the position was not a new position. It's not a new position. The position was backfilling Carol Nastasi's position, and she's been there for 40 years. That's all it was. It was not a new position. If this committee wants to start doing their homework, you need to start digging into the school budget and finding out what new positions are in that one. Because there are new positions in it.
Bob, what this committee,
It's become very political.
as,
You don't want to admit it, but you are right in the middle of this.
I'm not political at all, as I stated. I'm trying to do what's best for this town. I'm not picking sides on any part of this budget. What I've stressed since day one of sitting in this chair is information. Information that other towns have, we don't get. So how do you expect me to recommend a $25 million appropriation when I don't have information that shows me where I'm gonna be next week, next year, or the year after?
You know what's wrong with a 5-year plan? We've talked about it before. We talk about a 5-year plan. What's wrong with this? In year 2, you promised me this, and now you can't give it. It creates a problem. We're not, this is government. This is not general business. This is government. Yeah.
Then tell me why other governments can do it and we refuse to do it.
Who's doing it? Tell me somebody who's doing it. I don't know of anybody who's doing it.
I believe it's me.
Well, there were 2 hands up, so sorry.
No, Diane O'Brien, Chairman of the Building Committee. I would like to bring the conversation back to this project, if I might. Amy, I think you have some really good points. And I personally, as a resident of Norton, would not want such a cleanup that is going on at the old Reed and Barton site to continue without a representative of the town there. And I think that's why we have had kind of, I don't know, it's not a clerk of the works, but somebody there representing our community's interests during the cleanup. So I think, and I realize that that is a concern because I was at town meeting and heard the arguments also. The site itself, the EPA is supposed to clean it up. The town is only going to accept it if and when it is clean, and only then would the buildings go forward on that site. The debt exemption, once it is passed, it can hang around for a long time. I was involved in one for the town of Plymouth, which involved 2 high schools and a council on aging. We built the Plymouth North High School and the Council on Aging within the first 3 years. They have just opened Plymouth South High School, and that override was in 2007. So, I mean, the debt exemption. So they, once you put it in play, it doesn't mean you have to run out and spend the money. What Mike said is absolutely true. The appropriation is up to and to not exceed. That is one of the reasons that my committee working on the architects have built in a 4% accelerator for each of the 2 years that we anticipate. The $25,700,000 is the worst case scenario. We will not have a final number on the process until we go out to bid. It's impossible to know what the construction cost is, Mr. Helmrich. We can't we can't, we're not gypsies, we don't know. And we don't have the authorization to go forward unless this passes at town meeting and then passes, again with the vote. We've done the very best. My committee is sitting here behind me. We've worked on this since 2017, and I believe the Council on Aging Director put it in her capital plan in 2015. So it's been around for a while. The other thing I would like to suggest is today I had a very good conversation with the town planner. As you know, Wednesday night, it wasn't Monday night, it was Wednesday night. We passed our first master plan since since Kip was a pup. It's been years in coming. During that master planning, once the town's physical infrastructure is in place, with the master plan, with proper visioning, we can determine exactly where we want to go, what we want to do, how much we need to ask the taxpayers for on an annual basis. We will have a roadmap. But without the proper infrastructure in place, it's just like driving down the street. You can't get to Attleboro unless there's proper infrastructure. And these two buildings are the last in the municipal step for municipal infrastructure. Now, I'm not going to go through what the buildings are like. We all know. I've seen my share of mold. I've seen my share of falling tiles. I've seen people crammed in a room that you go, good God, let's hope there's not a fire and everything. We all have. We've all been sitting in places. The town needs these buildings. We need a place for public assembly. You're here. Why aren't you in the town hall? Why aren't you in an adjoining meeting space that's provided by the Council on Aging? That's a legitimate question. Why? Because there's no public meeting space. There's no public assembly space in this town outside of the library, this room, and the schools. Your selectmen's meeting room is way too crowded. I would hate to be in there and try to get out in case of a fire. You can't. You cannot get a stretcher up there. We need a place for public assembly. So I'm really asking you to reconsider this. It would be lovely to go into town meeting all as one group. Unfortunately, that's what I'm used to. In my last place of employment, we would bring out the guns and knives, but when we walked through the town meeting door, we were a unified group, and I would really like to see this going forward for our community. Thank you.
To Dinah and Mike, so this is 25.7 million. As I understand it, there'd be an initial cost of a town to get kind of things up and running.
Yes.
And then as the project management and the project team moves forward, phase one through completion, and it's a 2-year project, but my guess is quarterly, there are benchmarks as far as financial objectives. You can change the scope, the design, you can change things as you are going in the process to meet that number.
Yes.
Or to go under that number.
Absolutely.
Okay? So it will never go over that 25.7.
No, it will never go over.
Never go over that.
Once we get into the design phase, that's where you decide, we want the Cadillac,
Right.
we want the Chevy, or we want the Buick
Yeah.
in the middle. I'd say we're going for the Buick in the middle. You want it to be a decent building, you don't want it to be gold faucets, but that's where you make those decisions. Once you put together what you want to go out to bid, that's what goes out to the general contractor and all of the subs, right down to the interiors. And that's where your hard number comes. Fortunately or unfortunately, we live in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and we are required, unless you have a really good reason, to take the low bidder. But that's what the AG's office for is in Boston, to help us through that process.
And just to follow up, twofold. One is that you can control the cost because you're never going to exceed that because you can control how you want that done.
Correct.
Two, in most projects, this is a prevailing wage project. And we're in Bristol County. And I'm not quite sure how that was originally scoped out and that put a pin on the map in that project. So there is some latitude for a lot of that budget in the labor side and controllably in the material side. We control 100% of that material cost.
Absolutely.
So.
And the economy of scale for material cost, from site prep all the way through opening.
Correct.
Is shared with these two buildings.
And it's a joint venture between the architect, the project, the architect signs off, but then they can go back and we can do revisions. The project management team, the contractor, the GC, the subs, so it's all enveloped. We can control every material cost.
In my experience, once the project gets started, the building committee will be meeting probably twice a month to look at change orders, proposals, approving budgets. Yes, we can keep it, I've seen building
Right.
committees keep a very tight control
Yep.
on what is going into the ground and into the building.
So between 60%, 40% material, roughly. It could be 50/50. This is a big project. The land itself is pretty much,
And just to answer your question that you raised, a few of us in the room here were on high school building committee. And the first step was value engineering, where our builder and our OPM looked at the project and said, well, I'm afraid there isn't gonna be enough money, so we gotta cut this out, we gotta cut this out, we gotta cut this out. And then every month, we reviewed the project, we reviewed where we were, and then at the end, we were able to add some stuff back in. So it's a fluid process. You have a maximum number that you have to stay under, and then you work with that as you go along.
right. So,
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple questions on the sheet we were given, just with dates, and numbers. At the top of the first page, it says total production project cost starting date of January 2021. The construction costs are in 2019. And right below that, this cost escalation to January 2012 start date. Is that supposed to be 21? Is that just a typo?
It's supposed to be 21.
So,
2021 and
so-
2022.
so you've built in a 1-year delay of 7% into this. So 2021 is when we're thinking of starting. And then on the second page, for the town hall, it says escalation rate is 4% per annum, 7.7% start construction January of 20. So I'm just,
No, those are typos.
so they're typos. So 2021 is when we're gonna start, and like all the numbers built in for starting on that, based on the 2019 dollars. Okay, just wanna be clear.
Mike?
I was on this committee for the construction of the middle school and the police station. And I have to say, 2 years of planning and preparation did not take place when those buildings were constructed. I see a level of detail and preparedness that's we've never seen before in any building project that I was involved in. And if, we've had dedicated people on the project for 2 years, and if there's still questions, then, being on this committee, we all say people, they don't come to meetings, but the very last minute they're at town hall asking questions at the town meeting. If anyone had questions at this stage of the game, after 2 years of study, then I don't understand, why they would still have questions if it was out in the open for all that time. And as far as, the land and is it safe, I would, again, we've hired somebody to look out for the best interest of the town. And if, let's face it, if we believe the EPA and everyone else involved in clearing the project, the first thing people would say was, why should we believe them? Who's out looking for the town? Well, we actually paid someone to look out for the town's interest. And in that area, I feel comfortable as well. So, just in general, I just, it's a need we've had for years, and there's been lots of needs we've needed. that haven't gotten fulfilled. We have an opportunity now to fill a big void in the town, and I plan to vote for it.
Well,
Yeah, I just want to,
This angle.
sorry, Amy.
go ahead, Rick.
I was just going to follow up to my final point on this project is that, time is money. And, you don't have to look, where the bonds are and the money market is and the financial. I think that, I look at this, that we have an opportunity, as Mike said, I think it's been 2 years. And my real concern is, if we look, and if people could look up the town of Berkeley, what happened to them with the town hall. Their town hall had to be, I'm not gonna word, they had to vacate the town hall. They had to use trailers for 3 years. For 3 years. They had to go in and have to pay, uproot the whole process of the town, put trailers all over public land, their property owned, and it was just confusion. And I just don't want the town to have that go back as well. So that's all where I'm coming from. And I just think that if we really look at it, and to Steve's point and Mike's point earlier, and they were, the finances do need to be really tightened up. And what are our revenues? And where do we come from? As far as we can get a little bit more tighter grip on where the revenue is coming forward in the plan. But to this issue, we need those buildings. The demographics call for it. The buildings themselves call for it. The study has called for it. Everything in front of us is there. It has to be a decision that has to be from everyone in the community. Everybody. Sorry.
Amy?
Well, I mean, to Mike's point that we have someone watching what's going on, my concern is that they can't see what's underneath all of those buildings. It's a huge footprint. And when we tear them down, I don't know what our contract says. I don't know if we have recourse with the state and the federal government if they hand us a piece of property that's still contaminated when we tear everything down. Nobody's been able to answer those questions.
I can answer that for you.
Okay.
As part of the work, they are boring under the floors of the building to see what is, if anything, is under the floors of the building. They will know.
By the way, we accepted the SPAC property many years ago. It was 20 years to clean it up. The EPA and DEP are the ones that actually came to our rescue. I went to Boston, met with Bonnie Frank. He gets $10 million. I don't know where it came from. Suddenly, you got $10 million, you got it. I mean, he made it happen. It was amazing how fast he made it happen. Everybody in this room is going to have an opportunity to vote on the acquisition of that land that you're talking about. We have to vote for the town meeting. So if we don't have a clean bill of health on it, I'm with you. If we don't have a clean bill of health on it, if we don't have certifications stating that, yes, it is clean, however, if you do find something, we'll have to deal with it. That's the way it should be. But he can't accept that piece of land. It has to be done for town meeting. So at some point, we're gonna have to decide whether or not we wanna take it. And if you're doing a good job, we have conditions in place that allow it to make sure that we have recourse if we do find additional contamination. We don't want another SPAC.
Paul?
Well, it leads right into what I was going to say. When we build a new school, first thing we do is acquire a site. And you have to get state approval. It takes a long time to get that site. We don't go out and look for money to build a school until we have an accepted site. And we have something we know we can use. We're not there yet with this. This is the point I was making to begin with. I'm not opposed to this. I know we need it. But I just don't think we're ready at this point. We know enough. You've got to have, as far as I'm concerned, before you start approving major amounts of money for design and construction, you need to have control of an appropriate, certified by whomever, site to put this on, to know where you can put parking or where you can't put parking, what is too wet, what is, all of that sort of thing. We don't know that yet. And this is why I remain not opposed to the idea, not opposed to the project, but opposed to voting to spend money when we finally get around to the construction of it. I'm afraid that's going to be not just 1 or 2 years, but 4 or 5 years down the pike, given the way other sites around here and the EPA and others have sometimes worked. They get it done, but they get it done in their own sweet time. And that's when we should get the assessment as best we can and go out for bids or go to town meeting and approve the figure. I'm not opposed to the project. I know we need it. But I just think we're not ready to vote large sums of money when we don't even have a site that we know will be okay and when it will be okay.
Hey, the last elections, there was much talk about infrastructure and things going on. This gentleman over here mentioned that this could be the last, probably not, but the last piece of big infrastructure things we should do. The committee has taken 2 years to study this. Part of the reason for the higher cost is because we did it as 2 separate buildings. We have a site as, and I'm not going to get into the site argument, we have a site that both buildings can be set on, so there's an economy of size. We could have less cost. We gave you an estimate for a maximum cost 2 years from now, not right now, so we figured in some delay. We also had well in mind, us all being taxpayers, of how hard it is to get something like this passed through the voters of the town, doing the best we could for the town. So that's why we gave you the highest, or giving the townspeople the highest estimate we could. We also have a proposed $3 million or more backfill to bring this back down. We don't know if, because we only might hire 1 architect and 1 contractor, because all these bids are based on separate things, we could possibly get, due to economy of size, a lower bid for those services. So you have the Cadillac price, but you'll probably get, I think anyway, the Chevy bid if we go out today. If we wait 5 years like Mr. Humlick suggests, and then we find out the site's good, have we wasted 5 years? Have we wasted the taxpayers' money? Because now it's a $35 million by not taking a leap of faith as far as the site goes. I mean, you can't have much more oversight than you can by the EPA and whatever, but I'm not going to get. The last thing I want to say is, I have personally been attacked over this whole us versus them thing, and the elephant in the room that somebody else mentioned. As far as I'm concerned, I'm doing it for the good of the townspeople. Because we use the school as an example is not that we're being condescending to the school. They are the ones who have had the largest buildings. Both of these people mentioned the projects. I voted for some of those projects. I just don't understand why that elephant has to come up every time.
It doesn't.
What?
I said it doesn't.
Okay, you can think that. But it's been mentioned and it will be continually mentioned. It's just the example people are using because it's there. We have the new schools. It's there. Somebody mentioned the police department. Somebody mentioned the fire department. I mean, it's just there. Let's forget it. Let's do what's good for all of the town. And I have more examples of seniors who voted for the overrides, who voted for the people, but I'm not going to get into personal attacks or anything. But, you know, we're doing what we thought, and this gentleman was very good about saying it. We were looking out for what's best for the town. We did 2 separate sites because there's no big site in town that wouldn't cost money. We have a chance for free land that, okay, we have to take a chance on. I'm more than willing to accept that risk, which I don't think is a big risk, based on who's doing the cleaning and everything else. plus we estimated 3 years ahead of time for shovel in the ground, so, whatever, everybody wants me to shut up on the committee, but I'm sorry, I can't. I'm Irish and I'm old.
I'm Irish and I'm old too. It's a lovely sunset.
But you're a diplomat, I'm not.
No. I was just, if I could just go back and answer a question?
Okay, go ahead.
When you, Mr. Helmrich, when you asked about parking, and through this process, the building committee has mapped out the wetlands, the 100-year flood, the 50-year flood, the 25-year flood, where the septic system is going to go, where the parking is going to go on this particular site. And for one, I'm willing to put my faith in government. That, you know, when they turn it over to the town and we decide to accept it, that it is going to be a clean site. I prefer to work, you know, with people and alongside people, and I don't see it as a us versus them. I think it's a good site. This committee has done its due diligence. I know more about sewer pump stations than I would ever care to know in my entire life. But I can tell you where it would go if it was in there. So I think, you know, we have addressed your concerns. We've looked very closely at those. That's all.
Thank you. I feel like this issue is just one of. It's almost like we're a household that's having a hard time keeping up with its bills. It's the monthly bill from Columbia Gas and you know, Comcast and the phones and all those things just kind of come around all the time. And we want to, while we're having a hard time, maybe we're falling a little in arrears with some of those bills, we want to upgrade the siding on the house, or you know, the family car or something like that. And I worry that we just don't, that in a town where we have a history of saying we can't afford to take care of the police and the fire and the library and the highway department and the school and all, you know, all of this whole, the complete town side, not to separate the whole town side, you know, together, that we can't fund that properly. And we're gonna go incur this expense. And after having incurred this expense in a town that has told us we can't afford it, to then try to gain any ground on catching up on the whole town operational budget is going to be it's going to be painful. How are you going to get a yes out of people on that? And so it's just a question of priorities. We have to, you know, I like this project. I think that the size and scope and design and like this would be a lovely addition to Norton. It truly would. I'd be happy to have it. But I feel like we have responsibilities we have to take care of before we can do this, because yes, the town hall is a dump. There's not enough parking, but my car is parked there, and it's a lousy place to have a meeting, but we meet there. We have some fundamental issues all around town that I think should be our priority. And you know, we can't just look at this project as a standalone issue and say, yes, it's a good idea, or no, it's a bad idea. The town finances, you know, we're talking about spending the money of the people who live in this town. They have a certain amount, and they've told us recently, twice, we don't have extra money. So we can't expect to get both done. So if we're picking one or the other, what are your priorities? Mine or...
So to Aaron's point, circles back to what I've been trying to do for months. Information. information so we can plan it forward. I don't think, I won't speak for everybody at this table, I don't think anybody is opposed to this project. I think we all know the town hall's a dump. We've heard from people who go to the senior center, it's lacking. So, no one is opposed to the project. We need desperately to be able to plan it forward, whether it's this project or any other project that comes down the pike, and we can't do it. So as Aaron said, I think I need siding. I'm not sure I can afford the siding. Should I do the siding? I don't know. Bonnie.
I would like to add to Aaron's point that I think it's as though, talking about all the buildings that have been built, the schools, the police department, the fire department, I feel like actually what we have been doing is we have been using our salaries, if we're talking about a household, to pay for those buildings. And that's part of how we arrived at our general budget looking the way it does. That we've stayed within, worked within our means, like everybody has asked the FinCom to do for decades. And that is how we have arrived here. I agree with you that I've been a town employee. I think I'm the only one at this table that has. I've worked in that building, and it is a dump. So we're all saying the same thing. And we appreciate the work of the building committee. We said this last week when we met last week. But we paid for these buildings in the general budget. We do not have a big picture. We do not have a long-term plan. We just talked about developing a village center. We went through all the trouble to do that. We just approved a master plan. We have all these things that we want to do. We also want new buildings, but that to me is a part of a bigger plan for the town. And I agree with you that, well, actually, what I would also like to say is that I don't believe, I think someone has said it earlier, that the role of this committee is to give the people the right to vote. I believe on any specific project, but the role of this committee is to determine whether we believe that something is fiscally responsible. And so that is what I based my vote on, and that is why my vote is a no.
I'm Beth Rossi, I'm the director of the senior center here in town. I just want to say that the senior center, community center, where we serve not only the elder residents in town, but other people in town who are struggling. Not one person in this finance committee said, what is the cost if we don't do this? And that's what I see. I see seniors climbing over snowbanks to get to my building because there's not enough parking. And I said it before, it's not if somebody falls, it's when. And that's a suit on the town. No one's talking about that. The building inspector came and looked at the building today. And what he told me, he's like, Beth, you're lucky if you have between 5 and 10 more years left in that building before it's condemned. I was told that, you know, we're over occupancy for the main dining room today, and that it would be dangerous if somebody got hurt. You couldn't get emergency services in there. I don't want to see anybody get hurt in a building. I think his analogy to changing the siding is wrong. It's like, we got a hole in the roof, you know, and if your bills are mounting up and you got a hole in the roof, you know what you do? You borrow the money and you fix your roof so everything else doesn't fall apart. My sole job in this town is looking after people in need. That's all I do. That's what gets me up in the morning, what keeps me going. It's not the salary, it's not the working environment, it's the people that I can help. And right now, I am scared to death that the 13 parking spaces that I have out front, only 2 of which handicapped, I have people parking behind the garage that the school wouldn't give up for us. You've got people with walkers walking from a back parking lot to a building. If somebody fell, I wouldn't see them. They're not on my cameras. This isn't siding. This is holes in the roof. This is people. You know, I brought my brochure. My mission for the Council on Aging is to help people in the community to live longer, to be independent, to be happy, to be productive. In the facility I am in right now, and Dinah mentioned it, I said we needed a new building, was it 3 years ago? I'm not meeting my goals here. You know, I have people who want to exercise and they can't spread their arms out because they're going to whack the person next to them. These are people who want to be fit, who are learning to live healthy lives. I have people who only come to my program when I'm giving out free dinners. You know why? Because they're hungry. I don't have a commercial kitchen to feed these people on a daily basis. It's not siding, it's a hole in the roof, and we gotta mend it. We gotta do what's right for the most vulnerable in our community. And it's not just the seniors. Think about the single moms that I see that come in with 3 kids in tow and we gotta squish them into my office. It's wrong. Think about the people that come to me, not only seniors, but people who are struggling in town to get their taxes done for free. And guess what? There's 3 of them in one room getting their taxes done at the same time. There's no confidentiality. There's no privacy. How can you have pride? You know, when you're sharing your information in a room with other people. I'm sorry. Like, I know budgets and finance and stuff is important. You know, but we got a hole in our roof. We got a huge hole in our roof. And we had a great team that did a lot of work, and they came up with a plan. And it wasn't as big as Executive Office of Elder Affairs said we needed square footage for a senior center. It has already been scaled down. You know, and there's so much good that we could do with a new community center. Yes, I'm gonna call it a community center, because right now, that tiny little building I'm in now is a community center. We have people coming in of all ages. We're helping everybody there. And I get it. I get budgets. I'm out spending my own money like other people in this town are to sort of make ends meet. My outreach worker ran to Roach Brothers today because some woman in our community didn't have any food in the refrigerator. She did that today. There's a hole in our roof. We need to take care of our people, all of our people. You know, and for people to say, you know, it's the old people, that's crazy. That's ageism is what it is. Age is a spectrum. We need to respect our 5-year-olds, we need to respect our 12-year-olds, we need to respect our 50-year-olds, and we need to respect our 92-and-a-half-year-olds. All of us. At what point, is anyone here looking forward to institutional care? Anyone at this table? I don't think so. And that's why we have a senior center where we provide awesome programs, awesome fitness classes, awesome educational opportunities so they can make decisions to be independent and be healthy. I'm sorry I'm getting emotional, but I'm passionate. I love the people that come into my building, all ages, and we need to look out for them. And you know what? We have a number, and it's a bigger number that I can even fathom. But it's a number that we had 4 independent people come up with. I trust them.
Right?
We have somebody
That's right.
said, we can't go over that number. No matter how long we wait, if we pass it, it's only gonna be this high. You know, we have a piece of property that can be gifted to us. You know, that number's not going anywhere. If we look at it and it's not what we need it to be, then we'll have to reshuffle and rethink and no money gets spent, right? I don't know. Thank you.
Well spoken.
I'd like to add to that, you should be embarrassed meeting in here and not the town hall. You should literally be embarrassed.
The town hall wasn't available, otherwise we'd be there.
It would be if you had a new one.
If I can, you know, I went to the Chamber, Tri-Town Chamber Economic Development Breakfast Friday, and they honored the Craft Group, who you probably all agree is a pretty successful group. And they did planning. They talked about how they bought the stadium, and then they decided to build Patriots Place. And they started in 2006 and 7, and then 2008 hit. Now, there's one of the most successful business organizations in the United States of America. You plan, but it happens. And they kept moving forward because they knew long-term they'd be successful, but short-term they weren't. So you have to plan for the future. This is the future, and we gotta move forward.
But again,
We don't have a plan.
I don't want to circle back to this, but you're forcing me to.
Well, we can
You're
get to that over the summer, but that shouldn't have anything.
That should have
We'll get to that,
everything.
Bill, just, we're voting now,
We
just now, we'll get
should-
to it.
Oh my gosh. You cannot just keep kicking these cans down the road and say we're gonna get to it. We're gonna do it, Bill. I asked for this
Okay.
in September, did I
All right,
not?
You're getting sidetracked to the
No.
plan, so let's talk about the plan. If we talk about the plan, are we gonna look at everything? Are we
Yes!
gonna look at declining school population?
Yes!
All right.
But I thought it
Jeepers,
wasn't
that's
us
part of the
versus them
plan!
question. It wasn't an us versus them conversation, though, so I don't
Thank
understand
you.
why that keeps coming up.
It's
Don't bait, don't bait.
It's
It's not us versus them, keep
It-
bringing up things that make it.
I'm not,
Exactly.
I started here by saying it is not one versus the other.
Right, you gotta look at
I
the whole
am
plan.
trying to do the whole town,
I agree.
not just a piece of the town. So without that information, I don't know how you go forward. I don't. I am not opposed to this. I am in favor of it. But I can't vote for it because I don't know where I am in 6 months or a year.
2012, 70% of us voted in favor of a high school. And we had none of this information in front of us at the same time.
Does that make it right?
We understood the need to improve the building quality because our kids were in a dangerous situation. We understood that. 70% of us, 3 years out of one of the worst recessions of our lifetime ever.
If the state
We
wants to pay
agreed,
for
we
60%
agreed
of this
to build
project,
and
great.
improve a high school that needed to
Yeah,
have the
there's
improvements.
that.
It's no different than what we're talking about today.
It-
Without a
it-
plan.
alive during the first recession.
Okay, you can have it.
Rick,
Going back.
Just to circle back and put a point to all this, there's a lot of people here tonight that care about our town. We have a former selectman that came here with institutional knowledge. Finance committee people have been here. Everybody cares about this town. We have 2 new selectmen that are here, select board members. And I look at this, we're talking about one issue, and it's gone on for an hour almost. And it keeps on circling back to a couple of points, like, it's 3 o'clock, it's 9 o'clock. Okay, we gotta mention this. Okay, it's 8:45, we gotta mention this, 6:45. So it's not getting to the point. The point is, you're playing with house money. Eventually, these buildings, as Beth said, she's doing work that is incredible, that it's not even her job description, my guess. And she's asking just to be accepted and given the tools that she needs to do her job. And we're worrying about this and that department and this department. We have a great new people. The building department, he's worked at other places. He's seen what it's all about. We are at 30% of our capacity to be as effective as we should be. And part of that is because we don't have the infrastructure, the buildings. Now, do we need to address the whole town, the community development? Absolutely. But it's community development. We've lived in the downtown. Some people, believe it or not, like that downtown. It's not my cup of tea, but is that going to cause an issue? No. But you know what's going to cause an issue? The senior center, the demographics that are changing. That to me is white hot. Not about, and we've talked about the other issues, about the other departments. The problem is right now, we need to make a decision on the future of this town getting the departments up to code, just the scope of work that they need to do in a right way. And you know what? That is a lot of money. And I have a real problem with that because, as Bill said, the information. But you know what? As Bob has said and other people have said, we've worked off, napkins with pencil, number 2 pencil drawings in the past, and it's worked. So I just cannot believe that we're at this point now. We've gone this far in 2 years, and we're just gonna just throw it to the side. I mean, how many articles we've approved since I've been on for 6 years? 50,000 here, 25,000 here. Clean Water Bodies Act. Where is it? It just doesn't go anywhere. We need to get together as a town and really move forward. And you know what? You are right, Bonnie. We are a body that's about finances. Absolutely. And that's how we should do our vote. But you know what? We should use our gut, too. That's all I'm going to say.
I don't like a lot of conflict, which I think, we're hearing here tonight. But I am hearing a consensus that as we move forward as a community with this new master plan, that we also need to combine that with visioning. And I'm sitting here with my little blue notebook taking names of who I would like to recommend to the town planner as he moves forward, because I do think we need to come together as a community with consensus. You're right, we've been here an hour. I don't know if anybody's mind has changed. I hope so, to be honest with you. However, we have a June 3rd town meeting coming up. If I cannot go into town meeting as the chairman of the building committee and present this with the backing of the finance committee, I do look forward to your individual votes in support of the project. But it would be nice to know where we're going on June 3rd. We have a lot of work to do.
I'd like to move the question. I think we have gone around and around. At my age, I can't remember when we started and where we're in, and you know my bedtime is approaching. So can we move the article? I don't think it's going to change.
Did you? I was asked to speak on, no, that's fine. I was asked to speak on the existing town hall and council on aging. I could speak for hours on those buildings. I'll keep it brief because I think we know a lot of the problems with them. The town hall is a 109-year-old gymnasium. Built as a gymnasium. It had an addition in '97 for the fire department. Renovations to code compliance in '88. Not all of those were done. 88 requirements were mandated in '93. Those were not completed as well. We have large structural cracks running up and down the front and back egresses. I think we all see those every time we walk in and out. Fire protection, again, in the basement, we have a huge fire load. We don't have a rated ceiling. We have problems down there with all the paper storage that we're keeping down there. The assembly area in the selectman room is, it shouldn't be used. There's a single undersized egress. There's a set of stairs. There's no handrail. The occupant load is about 30. I think we usually put about 40 or 50 people in there. I regularly, at the beginning of meetings, have to kick people out and force them into the hallway to watch it on a monitor. So it's not really a town meeting if they can't be heard and spoken to. The interior environment, we hear about the inability to do our jobs on council on aging. I think the rest of us are feeling the pain as well. We have no windows. We have no privacy. We can't have private conversations. We can't talk to developers. We can't talk on HIPAA laws. We can't have private confidential conversations with our employees. We work in an echo chamber. There are no acoustical panels and ceilings. There's open chases through the building, through those old windows that were on the, where the buildings were adjoined to. That's a fire chase, that's a hazard. I require property maintenance and mandates on other buildings and every other rest of the part of the town. I don't know why it's not being done at the town hall. I find it very difficult to do my job throughout the rest of the buildings in this town and then go back to that office. It's very difficult. The accessibility, again, doesn't meet state mandates. The energy efficiency, There's no insulation in the floors, walls, or ceilings. Any money that we're pumping into the heating or cooling in that building goes right out those windows and doors. The structural cracks that have formed in the outside stairwells is because that's a chimney effect. So you get the fluctuation in the heat and the exchange. There's no control joints, so that's why those are cracked. That and the building settling. I could go on for hours, and I think I'm just gonna have another couple minutes of your time. I could say the same thing on the Council on Aging. Council on Aging is a 125-year-old single-room schoolhouse. It's a timber frame, okay? Those beams are so old that they're petrified. You can't work on them anymore. The roof is sagging from the eaves to the ridge, and it's also sagging in between the timbers. So the asphalt shingles are mimicking that. So it's a snow load, it's a catch, it's a structural collapse potential for a high snow load. Like I said to Beth earlier, I think you only got a few more years left there. Time to plan for something like that is not in the middle of an emergency, but prior to that, like this committee has been doing for the last couple of years. Again, I could go on for hours. I think these buildings have exceeded the life expectancy, both of them. They're both over 100 years old. I don't think you can kick the can down anymore because there is no can to kick. That's my analogy. I think the biggest point I'd like to make, if you plot these points on a graph for the costs associated with the existing building maintenance, the cost for heating, cooling, and needed upgrades, and for a growing community, and compare to them the cost for a new facility, you would see that these lines intersect, and that the cost to keep and maintain these existing buildings will cost us more in the long run. I feel we've already crossed that point, and now we're spending more money than we need to. We're throwing good money at bad. That's all I have for you. Thank you.
Peter?
Yes, I'm Peter Wiggins, the honorary mayor of Norton and a lifelong resident of the town of Norton. And I've been to the town hall and the council agent lots and lots of times for meetings. And the council aging, that I visit you a lot of times in your office. And yes, the buildings are falling apart, and it is time that we need to vote together as one community and vote yes on a new town hall and a community center, because both of these buildings are falling apart. And like what you said, Bob Kimmel, we've been putting on Band-Aids for too long. And also in 1986 there was a furnace spill back in October 1986 in which it closed the town hall for about 3 months. And we've been putting these Band-Aids on for too long because we need to be one community, and we need a new town hall, and we need a new community center. And Beth works hard at the senior center, and I've seen her numerous times, and it's a dilapidated building, so it's time that we need a new community center and a new town hall. Vote yes on June 3rd and June 18th. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter.
Yes.
Mike? We approved a year ago $1 million or $1 million something for this project.
We set aside 1.5, I believe it was.
Is that in this budget, or is that separate?
That would be used for this project. So that would.
So it would reduce the cost
Right.
by $1 million,
So
whatever's left.
We have a commitment of a donation of 1.6, and we have the 1.5. Well, we just used some of it for, so we have 1.3 left of that. So we have 2.9 million that would come off
The top.
the top before we borrow.
And to Paul's point, and I know people have disagreed, that we're years away. Maybe. How long are these prices good for in this budget? If
They're
we're
not.
years away,
Well, that's why we put in the escalators for 2 years. There's a 7% escalator for each year.
right, I saw that, but
For
if
2
you're
years.
not even starting for 2 years, is that even enough? I guess.
Technically, it is. We put
Yeah.
The cost is for 2 years from now.
Based on today's prices, only going up 7%.
Sure.
Do you know what the,
I think that making a guess at those kinds of estimates was what just burned the water and sewer department, right?
Well,
It's apples and oranges.
I know there's a difference, but I'm just trying to understand.
You know, it's a bonding, it's a bill, please.
It's different, because once you get a debt exclusion, that is the number. You
Right.
can't come back to town meeting.
That's the number you have to live in.
That's the number you have
Yeah,
to
but-
live
But
in.
that's not the actual cost of what you want to build.
It could be less than that.
It just means that, gee, your building is going to cost 30 million, but the town only gave you 25 million, so now you got to
No.
figure out how to cut
No,
5 million.
no.
No, it says, can I explain? I know I'm getting
Yes.
old, the time's running out. Can I explain one basic thing? Once we lock in the 25 million, it's not that the building's gonna cost 30 million and we're only
Right.
going in for 25. You have got $25 million, just like when you negotiate a loan with your bank. They come to you and you give them 3%. That doesn't mean you're gonna come back later and give them 2%. You're locked into 3%. We're locked into 25 million minus the 3 million that we have, okay? When that comes to pass, that's all we can spend.
All I'm saying is, based on these pictures.
Yeah.
These pictures may be more than 25 million.
No, it can't be.
That's where the estimates
It
come from.
can't
We're not
be.
architects.
It can be if your costs
No,
exceeded.
it can't be, because it's a controlled cost.
The accelerator is built in there, can never go above the 20.
I understand you're not gonna pay more than 25, but if you're designing the Cadillac, then that Cadillac could be 30 or 35.
Cadillacs
Then you
are
switch
25.
and design
So,
the veneer and go back
so there you switch back to the Chevy or the,
Yes,
No.
right,
yeah, you
So-
automatically go back.
that's what I'm saying.
Right.
Right now, Bill, the cost of 25.7 is reflective of all of those design plans, with the escalation going out to the mid-construction period, not the start, but the mid-construction period.
Paul?
Everything Tom says is correct except for one thing. You can always come back and say, we need another $5 million and vote a separate debt exclusion to be added to.
Right, and if we've already spent 17, we're pretty much stuck.
Right,
I'm just saying there, he's right that you can't, when you, the debt exclusion number, I mean, I was on the high school committee and we were working with the 34 million that Mike talked about. And we had to do an awful lot of stuff, right up to the very end to stay within it, cutting things and adding things and then you know what happens is that you get there and you got it all set and then 3 more schools get attacked. And all of a sudden, there is a really felt need on the committee that you need to spend a lot more money on security than had ever been built in before. And suddenly you gotta find that. And that means you gotta cut other things. And right up to the end,
Let me,
now wait a minute, let me.
Paul, I love you.
He's not gonna be here when it's done.
No, my point is that you can't count on anything. And I'm opposed to this only because I think we're not far enough along in acquisition and certification of basic site property to know that that site will work, that we can get it, and that there isn't gonna be some sort of additional cost to the town that we aren't counting on. When all of that's done, I would be perfectly happy to go out with this. I just think it's too early to do so, because frankly, I don't think we're gonna have a site ready in 2 years. I really, that's my guess, that's a pure hypothesis on my part, but it is based upon some experiences we've had in town with that sort of thing, and I just find it, I remember how long it took us to get an agreement so we could build a middle school where we built the middle school, and that took forever to negotiate, before we even got to getting bids on construction or anything. It was quite a process.
Mr. Chairman? Peter. So Paul, in terms of you don't think the site's close to ready, could I ask the committee, are there professionals on the committee that know whether this site would be ready or not, from their experience?
Not on the building committee.
Not on the building committee, no.
We are relying on
The
the government.
government. Okay.
The way this works is the sites, all of the sites, all of the plots of land that were evaluated as part of the feasibility study that we kind of armed the architects to do the research and site analysis and such. All of those sites were provided by the town manager and the board of selectmen. So the building committee itself worked with the sites that were given to us to be included in the analysis.
Okay.
So the best person to answer that would be Mike or anyone on the board of selectmen.
Okay.
So go ahead, Mike, if you have any response to it.
We're just relying on CEC, our consulting engineer.
Okay.
That's how we came up with the date.
Okay. No.
Sir?
It seems to me that everybody in the room is in agreement that these buildings need to go up. The question is how to go about it. There seems to be there's a serial way to do it or a parallel way to do it. The parallel way is to go ahead and evaluate the site, appropriate the money. That's a low-risk approach. The serial approach is you wait till the site's ready, and the number won't be 25 million anymore. It will be a lot more.
Correct.
And the second, that's a high-risk approach, it's a serial approach. The other consideration is this town needs investment from the outside. We're well below the average that other towns have for industrial revenue. We can't continue like that. One of the things you got to do is have a complete infrastructure here that makes the town attractive for investment, whether it's individuals moving here or industry coming here that wants to work with people in the city hall or town hall. They go there and it's like, do we really want to work with a town like Norton that has these kind of buildings and these kind of facilities? Is this the kind of thing? Maybe we should think of another town. So this is a strategic decision. The beauty of this is that everybody benefits from this. This is not just one particular group in town. Community center in particular. I mean, I think of the multi-function room and the full kitchen there, for instance. The school benefits from that. Kids can have functions there like dances or other activities. There can be town meals. The school is not therefore having to open its facilities and bring in the security and janitors and the expenses associated with that. So everybody benefits in the town in this particular investment. I really encourage you to take advantage of this point in time to move ahead on this. And I think the parallel approach, and do we really want to do that? It doesn't seem like, it seems like a pretty straightforward way to look at it from my perspective. Thank you.
I guess I'm a little confused on why it would be, costs would go up in 2 years doing it the serial way. But wouldn't go up otherwise. If the land's not ready and we're not ready to build, and we're not gonna be going out and getting quotes, for some time anyway, I don't see the need to rush into this. We've got a variety of things that we need to get accomplished in this town. We need people from multiple parts of the town sitting down together and trying to work out what a plan is, what resources we currently and will and anticipate having available to us. I think that this particular project probably does have a future in Norton. I'm for it. I think it fits in with the town size and scale. I think it's a worthwhile investment. To Beth Rossi, if she's still here, thank you for everything you do. And if this were a $7, $8, $9 million senior center period that we were talking about tonight, believe me, this would be a very different conversation. We're all very different. And I think that this may even be built on schedule. But I look forward to being able to sit down and make it part of a larger plan with people from a variety of different departments. The Board of Selectmen, the town manager, and leaders of all departments around town to try to come up with a good solution for everybody. And this should be part of it, but that should be part of a holistic approach.
Mike?
You know, you're talking about planning, five-year plan in the future, which makes perfect sense, but what doesn't make perfect sense is state aid, local receipts, and free cash. We can plan out anything we want to, and all of those are not controlled by anyone and can change just like that. So that sums up your five-year plan.
But other towns are doing it, you mentioned.
Well, they're trying to do it.
They're trying to do it.
They don't
We should
know
at least try.
what their state aid's gonna be next year. They don't know what their free cash
Excuse me, Plainville tried to do it, and they just went down the hopper.
Did
They
they
had a
try,
5-year plan, oh, it was great. Bing.
did they, or did they just do, did they
No.
just do what they've always
No,
done?
they projected a
And-
5-year plan, and they stupidly included things
Free
like
cash.
free cash.
Exactly.
Okay? All right? But that's the 5-year plan, because you can't depend on the state, you can't depend on the federal government, obviously, but you definitely can't depend on local receipts.
And then mandates are gonna change.
And then your
it.
mandates come in.
There's no way, municipality can't operate like everybody.
A municipality.
I go back and forth. I hear good points inside.
I'm
Or Raytheon. No concept.
So, Mike, I was gonna ask you, and we have two selectmen in the back. This may change my answer. So if you wanna go parallel, can we go parallel in my concerns in trying to work those plans, those projections, and all those things that I know we can do, but we have not at this point?
We can do that, and
Right?
one other thing.
That's the real world.
You know, until we have a project that's approved, we can't go out seeking donations, seeking grants. It's not, you know, we just can't, because you can't go to somebody and say, well, we might have a project, can you commit? You know, so we really, once the project's approved, then we can go out and try and raise money on, you know, the Friends of the Senior Center can go out and try and raise money for the community center.
And also,
Right.
I don't think we can go out to bid in good faith without an approved project or approved funds to pay for the award.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, you can't.
But I think we can work on all those things that you said together.
But I've been asking.
I did, I asked you.
Oh, one more thing. Mike, has the Board of Selectmen voted in favor of this? Have they voted on this yet?
I don't think they voted on it. They voted to move forward with the town meeting and the election.
We have an item in our next agenda to talk about this project, but we have not collected the documents.
And when's your next meeting?
It's scheduled right now for the 30th.
It's with us.
Oh,
It's with us.
Yeah, that's with us. Okay.
Where's it held at? Middle school auditorium?
High school library.
High school library? Ooh.
I think we should move the question, Mr. Chairman. I think we've burned.
I think we've burned.
I think we've burned everything we can.
I'll second that.
The question is, do we want to recommend this?
Yes, that's it. Yes.
Right.
Okay.
So,
And it goes before town meeting, probably in any case, so.
is there, this will go, as Paul's saying, whether we recommend or not, correct?
Presumably that somebody else will move it. We won't move it. If we recommend it, we move it. If we don't recommend it,
Someone else
we
can.
had this
Comes
from the floor.
floor.
We had this from the
Comes to the
floor
floor.
Right.
at the last town meeting.
Right.
Anybody can move it. And then the people can decide.
Exactly.
So we have a motion and a second to recommend Article 1, special town meeting on June 3rd for 25 million and some change.
700.
Any further discussion?
My only question is, if the selectmen haven't voted on it, would it make sense to, well, they're saying that
They
they're.
voted to move it to the town meeting, but they, as a board, have not actually.
Can
We don't
they-
need that.
No.
So,
To your point, Steve,
So if we go as a unified front that we're all looking for, would it
Right.
make sense to wait for the conversation from the Board of Selectmen on next
on May
Thursday?
30th?
Or they can follow us.
We've never waited for them before.
As we've
We're
heard-
here
as
for
we've
a full
heard many
committee,
times
we
tonight,
we
this is
can't
a
guarantee a
unique
full committee
situation.
the next
It
meeting.
involves a
Right,
lot of.
well, Jerry's
not
voted
been
on
done
this.
this.
That's fine, okay. Question?
Alright,
right, yeah,
motion second.
to you, you know that.
All those in favor? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All those opposed? One, whoa.
Man, I can't vote twice, can I? Sorry.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Recommend.
7-5?
6-5.
6-5?
5.
It's up to me, huh?
Thank you.
Yep.
Keith got hit. As you know, the price of gasoline has skyrocketed, like 7 cents a gallon. He was trying to make it through the year, but he doesn't think he would make it, so he's looking for a reserve fund transfer of $12,000.
What is it? Is that it right here? Miscellaneous? He's got it on miscellaneous?
Yeah.
I got 10.
Well, that's the balance in the
Oh,
account.
there it is, oh, okay. Yep.
Rick?
Mr. Chairman, I move transfer request in the amount of $12,000 from miscellaneous account to the Department of Highway, which is 1/940/540/5481.
Second.
Motion and a second to transfer $12,000 to the,
Supplement fuel expense appropriate.
to 1/940/540/5481 account. Any further discussion?
Where's it coming from? Where's the money coming from? From the reserve funds? Oh, okay. That makes more sense. All right, that makes more sense. Thank you.
Any further discussion? Yep.
Mike, he's got 10.8 right now in his account. That'll get him through roughly what period? I know this is through the end of June, the 22,000 if we approve this.
The 10,000 will probably get at the end of May.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? I think that's unanimous.
I still haven't typed those minutes from that meeting.
I think Pat's got a lot.
That's it, just,
It's not it, because we have a meeting in a week with the school committee.
That's the 30th, right?
And, right, 30th. School committee, superintendent,
High
Board of
school
Selectmen.
library.
If we're meeting with them, we should have some sort of a game plan as to what our concerns are and what we want to accomplish in this meeting, to kind of, as we've all tried to accomplish tonight, have a united front going forward instead of fighting, bickering, finger pointing, and all that kind of stuff. So, are there any topics that this committee feels imperative that we should be speaking on?
Yes.
Paul?
I think we should be speaking on the same thing we've been speaking on for the past 15 years in our annual report before the town meeting, which nobody reads. And that is the need for a general override due to the fact that since we're one of the about 10 or less communities in the state who have never passed one. And since 2.5 passed in 1980, the number of years when inflation was a good deal more than 2.5% drained things from us. You know, we gave up with trash collection, we did this, we did that, in order to be able to stay without the general override. And we've reached the point where modern times have caught up with us. Modern electrical equipment, and by electrical I mean all of those fancy gadgets that I don't understand, cost a lot of money, that I do know. And we've got lots of other things. And we have buildings that desperately need to be replaced. So all of that goes together. I mean, you can have a debt exclusion for a building, but you can do that if you've got a base that doesn't leave you every year when you say we want to provide level services, and we can't provide level services. We are not providing a level service budget this year.
Right.
We haven't for years. Every year we aim for level services and we wind up not quite getting there. So if there any one thing I think this committee should do would be just to push hard that this committee, school committee, the Board of Selectmen, and anybody else should be supportive of this. It won't pass until there's a general movement, which I saw the first signs of at our town meeting the other, in favor of it. You aren't going to ever get a general override. It's just our committees going for it. It's got to be broader than that. But if you want one thing that I think would be an appropriate thing to be on the agenda from my point of view, that would be it for me.
Rick?
I know exactly where Paul's coming from, and I understand it, but how do we get to a number to recommend?
You can get to a number pretty easily because you don't have to be specific in all sorts of broad things. You just say we need a base that would allow this. In other words, this kind of a general exclusion, you can tie every nickel to various departments. That really doesn't get you anywhere because they go out of whack very fast. You're a lot better off just saying, we've never had one. The rate of inflation has been, we've been behind that so much, if you take all the years put together, and pick a number. 3 million, 2 million, 4 million, somewhere in that range, to add to our base. And then from that on, 2.5 is increased from that level rather than, and that would make all the difference in terms of level services and of being able to do something a little more in terms of just general town government than level services. Look to ways that you can better it.
We have some improvements.
Do you think our model now, a business practice, would
I don't know.
capitulate another 5 years?
Who knows?
Well,
If the state moves us down another notch, like they did, what, 5-6 years ago, that's part of why we got the trouble now, is that they decided we were a more affluent town.
community.
And they just cut us back.
Think you can afford it.
And said, you're more affluent now, you get less state aid. And that's been part of our problem.
Makes sense to me.
I think another topic to talk about is our transparency and financial reporting from all departments. We have a request out and we get certain information that honestly, it's what people want to provide us. I think we come back with a request of what we'd like to see, when we'd like to see it, and laid out the way we're asking for it. The other thing, Mike, one of the conversations we had is right now, the town is not collecting the maximum levies that we should. And I can't remember, that was a number of 80-85% of what we should be collecting is what we're collecting. Is that not accurate?
Not accurate.
Okay.
We go to our full levy limit, and the treasurer collects like 99% of the tax
Okay.
revenue that's due.
But every tax is being levied on every property. So every property in town is receiving a tax bill. Okay, so the project we had a couple of years ago, where I know there's potentially some that aren't being assessed to the level they should, but I thought there was something a couple of years ago where properties were not being taxed at all. You remember any of that conversation?
Abandoned properties, commercial.
Properties, even if they're abandoned, they're still taxed every year. And it's kind of different the way the system works. So they're still part of your levy limit, and they're taxed every year. And until they go into tax titles and the town actually takes them, they're taxed every year.
Okay.
Churches, for example, religious property is not taxed.
Right.
So you have that, those kinds of property. Religious and private education, things like that are not taxed.
What about, do we cycle the commercial and the residential at the same time? Or are they done differently?
They do it all at the same time.
Right, yeah.
They have a company that does it and helps them with their commercial.
And excise tax for businesses are being assessed on?
Excise is all set by the state.
All right, so the state would know what equipment a company would have that they
Oh, you mean
potentially is.
that's personal property.
Okay, so personal property, is
Yeah,
that
if you're
being
not-
assessed?
If you're not a manufacturing company, you have to pay on your personal property, and that's part of what the assessors do. They go out and evaluate what people have and tax them.
And that's up to date as well?
And just go back to Steve's point, on the abandoned properties, there was, I think last year, the treasurer did a project that captured, I forget, I'm gonna say 145,000.
Yeah, she'll do auctions.
Yeah, so, but that was on the levy, but we never, that was a false read.
Well, what do you mean in false read?
In other words, we never collected it, but it was assessed.
Right.
It's a
counts-
false read.
It counts towards your levy.
Right,
Whether you have
right.
the money come in or not.
Okay.
We're not on a cash basis.
Right, but, and then there's other properties that maybe we could do that same thing. I mean, it's not 100% cleaned up.
Right. When
Yeah.
her tax title attorneys are able to clear a property
Yeah.
to be sold, then we'll auction them off.
Yep.
Just a couple things you might think about, if I can. See if we're gonna bring forward the special ed stabilization account again. It was there, talked about before, but never, where at the end of the year, money that the schools would turn back could go into a special ed stabilization account.
Yep.
And something we should think about. I know when Standard & Poor's is rating us, they always ask us if we have a financial policy. And that would be something that would have to be agreed upon with the selectmen, the school committee, and the finance committee. And the financial policy would say, so much percent of your free cash every year will go to OPEB. So much will go to stabilization, so much will be held for the next year.
Yep.
Something to think about.
Which was all part of Amy, was that Northborough that you sent me?
Yes.
And I sent to everybody else that link?
Yes.
That has all that information in
How
there.
many employees do they have to put all of that together if they can afford it? That was impressive.
It was impressive. I was very impressed.
I'm not looking for that.
I kept thinking, they must be in a different financial bailiwick than we are, because they must have 3 or 4 people who do nothing but that full-time.
Yeah, but if they've
Yeah.
done that report once, then
Right.
next year
Yeah.
plugs in the
Right.
numbers and the report
Right.
looks just
Plug
as
and
good.
play.
I'm
So it
sure
could-
there's
so
some
it
sort of
could-
model behind
Yeah.
it.
It's
Yeah.
pain in the beginning.
Right.
Pain in the beginning, yeah,
Amy?
yeah.
I'd like to talk a little bit about, we talked about transparency. I'd like to talk about funding sources, because I know Mike tells us, like, oh, the conservation team got a grant for this, the schools got a grant for that, the senior center got a grant. I'd like to know, when we're talking about budgets, where funds are coming from, because it makes a difference to me, like, oh, if this $25 million already has $3 million worth of funding dedicated to it or not, or, that kind of conversation is impactful. So I think being able to have more transparency in sources of funding would help us have a clearer picture of the overall financial health of the town.
Although, as somebody pointed out, as long as you've got state aid and a few other things, you can never be certain about anything.
Well, I think the other piece of that is you can ballpark a couple of different options,
Yes.
right? You got the high end, the oh god end, and the middle somewhere, and you hope you're not too far from the middle.
Right. Right.
It's dropped.
That's a good point.
Anybody else?
To go along with even positions.
What do you think?
Yeah, even something to go along with that conversation, even positions. Is there a reason why we have 2, I'll call them accountants? Is there a reason why we have 2 payroll people? Can that all be supported under one area?
You need the same amount of people,
Yeah, I just don't,
you wouldn't be able to have, what are you talking, like having a school business manager and having a town accountant?
if you have a
Really?
general, there seems to be a lot of duplication. I saw it in one of the papers that we had. There's 2 payroll benefit areas, town, school. There's 2, lack of account potentially, town, school. There's a couple of areas that seem to me the responsibilities overlap. Can they be combined? And maybe we're not recreating the wheel, but a thought about that.
Part of the problem is that, of course, by state law, the school has a totally different ability to control its budget and to spend its money
Well-
than we do, where we have
Right.
expenses and salaries, and you can't move as we.
Well, I think that's a good point, because that Article 21 left a lot of bad taste in people's mouths the other night, at least me, where
Their salary one.
the salary for 1 week couldn't be prescribed after 6 months to a town employee. If that person went across down the street to the schools and applied for a similar job or same classification, they would be honored with that 6 months.
And every union contract.
And every
Well, it
town
was
side.
union,
And
non-union.
union contracts.
No,
with
but they're
town hall.
clerical people that are not union
Yeah, but.
in the school, so
but most
it
of
was,
our
it was
employees- most of our
insidious.
employees are union.
I
It's
think
not
what
just
what
school.
Steve's nailed is that we are gonna have a unusual opportunity where we have the Board of Selectmen, we have the, hopefully the town manager at that meeting, and the school committee, everyone who,
Well, here's how we did it. We recommended,
for that particular opportunity.
You
We have all
recommended-
the people there together, so it's a great time to discuss it then.
but we didn't vet the word, accrued. What does accrued mean? Right? We brought it as an amendment in front of everybody. We didn't vet the word, and then we approved it.
We were worried about the person leaving after 6 months and getting
Yeah,
1 week's
yeah.
vacation, but this is what we did.
Right.
We said, well, you'll get paid for a cruise, so they could leave after 1 month and get a
Yeah,
day's vacation.
exactly. That was my
That was a
point.
smart move.
That was my point. I didn't want to say anything.
Just answering Steve, in general,
I just got-
I think if you bring up other positions, rather than rather than put one out there, just bring up, are there services, you know, accounting, IT, other services that could be shared.
Pat, do we have minutes of any sort?
Should we start with the newest and work our way back?
Sure. What the heck?
Doesn't matter, I remember none of it anyways.
It's all a blur.
I just say short.
I just found out from this board of selectmen meeting, we actually
Thank you,
can
Mike.
vote.
Thank you.
You can
Thanks,
vote,
Mike.
even if you weren't present.
You can vote by proxy.
They voted, Jack and Renee voted on minutes from when they weren't even on the board.
Oh.
And I went on afterward and said, you guys just voted on like 8 sets of minutes. Where you weren't even on the board. And Mary leaned over and said, they can. I was like, can we do that? She said, yes. We don't. That's not our.
Paul second.
We're also a much larger
We are,
board, so.
but I think that's
Yeah,
the problem
thank
that
you.
we run into. Bye, guys.
Oh, they're running to
Quorum issues.
quorum issues.
Anyway, are there any other changes?
I always abstain. because-
Right, we don't need
Well,
to.
that's tradition.
Traditional, yeah.
Oh, well, here's.
I figure I have no opinion on the meeting I wasn't at, you know what I mean?
I didn't think you were leaving. I thought you were freezing, and I was right.
Here we are.
Right, this is the meeting notes.
Oh, these are easy to review. Planning board was informed they will need to present this one below.
Good enough for me. Pat wrote it down, it's good.
The only thing on the article. Go ahead,
You did
Bonnie.
not raise your hand. It says June 2nd for the special town meeting. It's June 3rd. Under old business. On the second page under old business.
Thank you.
Yep.
I thought on Article 15, we voted because it was similar wording, even though it changed at the town meeting floor.
Yeah.
We didn't vote, we didn't say they needed to present this, it was based on our vote.
We didn't need to change anything.
Even though, right, even though, but even though they
change
changed
our
it
recommendation.
at the actual meeting.
Our
Right.
recommendation stayed the same.
Right, I think
Right,
we,
so I think we
like,
agreed
I
to be on here.
revoked my motion to make a
Yes,
change,
you
because we
did.
couldn't even tell what the
And
change
that's
was.
that's exactly it. So
I
what,
scratched it out, I
Right.
put it in, I scratched it out, but there was no video to go back to and check.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
what should I
think
put
it-
on there?
I think it get taken out.
I think it got taken.
Eliminate the whole thing.
Right, I think
Yeah.
that's what we agreed on.
We didn't do
Is that
anything.
she-
Discussion?
Yeah, just eliminate all of
Just the one
it.
on Article 15.
All right.
That should have disappeared.
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right, because we didn't vote on 16, 17.
Because nobody would come tell us what the change was.
I didn't like that
That was a
whole,
hot mess.
this was a hot mess. The sign thing was a hot
Oh.
mess. I didn't like that at all. I didn't like that at all.
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Peter?
I recommend we approve the minutes as amended.
Second.
A motion and a second to approve the minutes of May 15th, 2019 as
Kids put
amended.
themselves to bed, they're home alone.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? 10 in favor, 1 abstain.
Is that it?
Are there any more?
Any more minutes?
Look at those piles.
Yeah.
All right, this is the one that I got your corrections
Yep.
after I'd
had already gone to town hall, so.
Okay,
But let's see if there's anything else people catch before I.
okay.
Thank you, Mrs. Tarantino.
You're welcome, Mr. Kerrigan.
Thank you.
She hands them out just like a teacher, doesn't she? Just like a teacher.
Pat and I
Just
are
like
on a
a teacher.
first name basis.
Just like a teacher, she's handing them out, see? Ready for the test. She was.
This was 2 days before town.
Pledge allegiance, I was there. I always remember the pledge allegiance.
Oh, yes.
Or just as you make them.
Was it on page 3, I asked for STM to go to page 4.
Yep, that's 4 minutes.
On page 5, Mike's name is misspelled.
Dactonic or dactonic? I think that was DAC.
DAK.
D-A-K.
Was it DAC? D-A-K?
Yeah.
Yep.
I was checking on the shirt.
Yeah.
Checking out his shirt.
Well, really, I did.
It was on all of the printouts.
That's the stuff I found.
Wow, so watched. That was way past my bedtime.
Your bedtime's not for 2 minutes.
I know. No, I meant the meeting I missed.
Oh, this
I
one.
would've been sound
I
asleep.
think that's why we went so late.
I know it.
We were partying with everything.
We've read these before, haven't we?
That's right. That's right.
We just had some minor changes to them before.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman,
Peter,
I recommend we approve the minutes for May 13th.
as amended.
Sure, as amended. Do we amend something here?
I have one statement.
Okay.
Acronyms, if we could spell out what it means at least once in there so we can, so I see DHCD, I know it's Department of Housing and Community Development, but it's not spelled out anywhere first.
DHCD is what?
The Department
Of Housing and Community
State
Development.
2, four sentence. Fourth paragraph, I guess. It says, can we go back to DHCD?
Yeah,
Thank you.
certainly.
So I have a motion. Did I get a second?
second.
A
Gotta keep
motion
going.
and a
Gotta do it,
second
gotta do it.
to approve the minutes of May 13th, 2019 as amended. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Oops. Sorry, thanks, Paul.
Opposed? Abstain? 2 abstentions. Do we have more? Oh my gosh, this is exciting.
Bill,
That's because,
You poor thing, Pat. You got the brunt of all our frustration at the end of the meeting.
because Tom kept this going for so many, past his bedtime. I didn't have the heart to go through minutes.
thank you.
I don't know how you guys do it, I'm brain dead.
He always says his bedtime's earlier than it is.
You didn't
He-
say we
you
were
know,
Well, it is to get up at 4 in the morning.
An hour ago, you said it was your bedtime. I don't know when your bedtime is.
Sleep stretch.
It is 9 o'clock.
It is 9 o'clock.
The gentleman who spoke, his name is Tim Long, so it says Mr. Owen. Bottom of page 2.
Okay, Mr. Long?
Yes, long as in opposite of short. And it's again at the top of page 3.
Then I see, I need a motion to adjourn the public hearing. I don't remember having a public hearing. No, I wasn't there. I won't make a motion.
On this article, town meeting.
Is after page 4.
Did you know that they had already spent $24,000 before we approved that 5,000? Because I didn't.
That was the, did we give them like 1.5 million for that whole thing? They spent some money at the 1.5.
Get frittered away. And I didn't know until Renee said on town meeting floor they'd already spent $24,000.
Hopefully there's
They
no
spent
other change, 'cause I'm not hearing any.
$24,000 in the first 8 months of the oversight.
Steve's name is PH.
PH in his first name, V.
If we're gonna be picky about spelling, Edith Reed is R-E-A-D, not R.
EDITHREAD, that spells
Not
Edith Reed.
R-E-A-D.
It's true.
Sorry. E-N.
Ian, sorry. Ian,
Two Ds.
S-T-E-P-H-E-N.
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, Pat.
All right.
It's the top of page 3.
Oh my gosh. Please don't read that into this.
You're doing great, Pat.
Motion, anyone who was there?
Read and read.
There's one more. Page 4, Serped has 2 Ds. It's actually after page 5 in mine, I don't know.
Oh. Oh, yeah. Look at that.
Yeah, I just noticed mine was different.
So it's the middle under where it says Article 14 in that paragraph, it just says SRPED, so say DD, yep. I was gonna say.
Sorry.
Alright.
I'm not gonna, I was there.
Mr. Chairman, I move we accept the minutes of the meeting of April 24th as amended.
Motion. Motion and a second to accept the minutes of April 24th as amended. All those, any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained? 2, 3 abstentions. Should there not have been 4 abstentions?
Oh, you're absolutely right. I apologize for that.
4 abstentions.
Look over there.
Do we have more?
Yes, we do.
Oh, boy.
How many more?
I'll go back and count in minutes.
Oh,
God.
Save some for the meeting.
what are we meeting
Mr.
next?
Chairman,
Well, you can't keep
make a
not
motion
doing
to approve
minutes.
the minutes Pat's handing out.
I love you. Me.
It's probably good, because since April 10th, that's 6 weeks ago.
Tom had hair.
Wait till we get to the 2018.
That's a good.
Is that in the notes?
That is good, huh?
Oh, God. Boots.
All right, pretty soon we'll get to
Page, the first page, you can add an E to my name.
I don't even look at my name. I don't see it.
Oh, under all the motions.
Under all emotions. It's R-E-I-C-H.
Well, it won't fit on the line that way.
That's right.
In the column. She's gonna have to redo the spacing.
I don't care.
Click and drag.
Well, a lot worse than that.
Worse than that, right.
No, Rich.
That's fine, leave it that way.
Mr. Chairman?
Are you should know it.
On number
Oops, that was
2,
the
the
whole
review
thing.
of Sun Chronicle article regarding Plainville's current fiscal situation and lack of free cash. I think it was really their spending of free cash that was the issue.
Yeah, and then they didn't have it.
Right, it was both.
They didn't have it, they lost
It was using their free cash
But then
to
you use
do
the free cash.
previously in their operational budget,
Right, the issue
and then
wasn't
not
that
having
they
it.
didn't have it.
Oh, did I do
This year.
these? Are
That
these
was the
mine?
issue, they didn't have it
It
anymore.
wasn't me, I wasn't back yet.
These aren't the ones I did, they're too short.
I don't know. Do you love them or hate them?
I think I was there.
You were there? You weren't there?
I think I was there. Did this Cogliano speak only once
No, he spoke multiple times.
at our meeting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, he
Yeah.
came more than once for certain. Because after a while, they all run together.
Oh, I was absent.
Mr. Chairman,
I know it was good.
I don't have to do anything.
Peter, were you really?
I recommend the minutes of April 10th as amended.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the meeting, the minutes of April 10th, 2019, as amended. All those in, any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstained?
I'm looking at you, and you raised your hand, so I knew. The real problem.
Oh, let's keep it
Yep.
on.
Oh, just getting a little punchy. It's kind of late.
God.
You want me to do the next one faster?
I didn't do these either,
There's too much oxygen.
so I lied about not having the ones with
This has a look like I did it.
I'm so
I
excited.
use grids.
I'm sick of carrying
That makes
these to every.
one of us.
Sorry, Bonnie.
I know, National Renaissance.
I'd be bailing on
Uh-oh, wait a minute.
Red Fox, oh, it's fine.
Did somebody get,
Yeah, we can share.
did somebody get an extra? Or there may have only been 10.
Oh, yeah, you must.
I was absent for this one.
Talking
So
about-
give yours to Erin.
Here, Aaron, have mine. I was absent.
Wait, there's 2 of them.
Sophie.
You were the one with the
Oh,
good.
no, these are the other ones we just voted on.
Exactly.
March
I remember that well.
Yeah, I was
Oh, and
absent.
Steve was absent too.
I don't know where I was that day, but I was not here. I don't recall.
Oh my God, this really wasn't a long time.
Oh, I was in New York for work.
I'll get it out.
Our reserve fund
Yeah.
was 150 minus what we did
Yeah,
tonight,
150 left.
minus
Yeah.
tonight, whatever we did tonight.
It says we have 32,000 from our reserve fund.
No,
So then it's fine.
What's that?
Need to transfer 32,000.
Yeah, we need to transfer 32,000 out of the reserve fund. And the reserve fund. Check out.
I don't have a time.
After the thing we did tonight, we have about $70,000 left in the reserve fund.
Mr. Chairman,
Peter,
I recommend we approve the minutes as amended for March 25th.
motion and a second to approve minutes from March 25th, 2019. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Abstain?
Still awake. I'm sure, I'm not sure, I was sleeping.
Tom, you're getting quite the reputation.
12 to zero.
Two
Oh
more.
my lord.
Let's go for it.
My kids
Might as
are
well do it.
home alone. I hope they went to bed.
Not have a house when you.
I might not. I fed them before I left.
Yes.
No cooking
Doesn't mean
required.
they didn't eat everything in the cabinet.
Obligations are done.
Did you flip the circuit breakers off for the stove and the microwave and any other
No.
appliance that
And the
might turn
video
on?
games.
No. Honestly, if all they do is sit there and play video games, at least they didn't burn the place down. That's fine with me.
Almost happened at my house, burned it down.
Well, that's why I'm saying you can't turn off all the electricity. I guess you could turn off.
March
You
18th,
could.
March 18th, this is John.
right after St. Patrick's Day.
Nobody was absent.
Middle school has an open wing? Number 13, all the schools at full capacity. Middle school has an open wing.
Yeah, I don't know what that means.
The whole wing's open, not used. Population.
I don't think the wing, there's no open wing
Talk about open rooms, or is it?
Yeah.
at the middle
Just
school.
thinking about the middle school, I know we're like 6 purple, 6 white. and then
The only
fours
wing
above
is
it.
like the back, but that's
There's 3
where
grades and 3
music
grades.
is,
That's where all the
and
specials
that's, yeah.
Just don't think there's an open wing at the middle school.
No, there is,
There's not.
there isn't, that I'm aware of.
I would know. I'm long past that.
Right, I know when we spoke to him, you know, he said there's no way, given how they're set up, that, you know, purple and white, that section's all filled, and the only thing available would be the back, but then you wouldn't have purple, white back there, because it's not built that way.
Well, they
Right.
mix during specials, yeah.
So I don't think there's an open
Hmm.
wing. The last sentence, I'm not sure what that means. In the whole last page.
After we submit it.
Never-
Where it's not in this unit, just talking about,
We just have
no, there's
to,
only one total, we just have,
to explain how the debt exclusion has no effect on the annual budget.
Mr. Chairman, I think you just strike the word is.
Just us, yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean. How it is, that's no effect.
Mr. Chairman,
Peter?
I recommend that we approve the minutes March 18th as amended.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve March 18th, 2019 minutes as amended.
So, did we take out the middle school has an open wing? That's what we determined to do? Okay.
I'm gonna listen to that video again.
Okay.
I bring my own laptop
Um,
to send us the stuff electronically.
Now, you may have heard it right, but what they call a wing and what we think a wing is, I don't think it's the same. I can't imagine having a whole wing of rooms. That wing would appear to me.
Right.
And I can't imagine that.
Right.
Yeah, I can't imagine that.
Right. So motion and a second, as amended. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Unanimous?
You were all there.
One more.
One more.
One more.
Wishful
And
thinking.
this one,
As quick as I can.
I don't think I was born yet. I wrote them anyway. This is April 23rd, 2018.
What?
Yep. I sent out April 18th.
Read that one and let me know, will you?
It's gonna look so good when these are up on the minute.
Yeah. How
I
they
can't
never,
make it.
how they never.
I'm sure we'll get a
Thank you.
commendation.
I don't know, and it's hard to do as it is.
I don't have to sign these.
No, this one's my signature, huh? I'm blamed. All right.
Oh, you weren't even there.
My fault.
You don't have to vote, you weren't there.
And I'm still
Requested
here.
$513.
Okay,
Very
this
exact
one's,
Additional funds.
oh, I do
for
remember the
West Main Street
refrigerator
project.
article. Remember, Tom, you were there.
Oh, awesome. This is before last
I
time we
remember
were-
that.
We gave the water and sewer department some funds for the sewers.
Mr.
I
Chairman,
mean, the,
Peter?
Yeah, you're right.
I recommend the article, minutes for April 23rd as amended.
Second.
What are we amending?
Oh, just in
Just
case
to
we
be
did.
safe.
My name.
His name.
Yep. Stephen's
The
name.
rest of it, gee, I remember clearly.
they
Quite a
do
night.
remember that.
You know what, I think I'll celebrate if I ever get one that's right.
So a motion
Yep,
and
I
a
remember it.
We don't have
second.
to do these minutes, because they were voted on this meeting.
Amy.
I did. Sorry, I was yawning.
This was so long ago, this is when they were coming to us explaining they were gonna need $880,000 for the West Main Street project.
Yeah.
We had-
Back
we
when the
got to
West Main Street
1.5
project
yet.
only cost,
We gave it to him. We gave it to him too.
Gallon of milk was only $1.
And gas was 99 cents a gallon.
Motion and a second to approve the April 23rd, 2018 minutes as amended. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Abstain?
You don't have any more, right?
No, that's it.
Good.
You want more?
No.
Tom?
Mr. Chairman, due to the lateness of the hour, make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn. Any further discussion?
Absolutely not.
Hearing none. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you.